Shedeur Sanders didn't need to raise his voice to make his point. He didn't need to name names, point fingers, or turn a routine post-game press conference into a spectacle. Instead, he did something far more deliberate and far more telling. He drew a line. After Cleveland's 23-20 loss to the Bills dropped the Browns to 3-12, Sanders was asked about one of the most scrutinized moments of the game. Kevin Stefanski's decision to go for it on fourth down from Cleveland's own 44-yard line. The play ended with Sanders being sacked for a 13-yard loss, effectively swinging the game. It was the kind of question reporters ask all the time, especially to quarterbacks. Harmless on the surface, loaded underneath. Sanders saw it immediately. I know you can't be asking me that question. Come on, man. That wasn't frustration. That was recognition. What followed was one of the clearest explanations you'll hear from a rookie quarterback about how narratives are created and how teams fracture when players allow themselves to be pulled into them. Sanders didn't criticize the call. He didn't defend it either. Instead, he challenged the premise of the question itself. He made it clear that he understood what the reporter was trying to do: place responsibility subtly on a coach versus player axis. Create tension. Extract a quote that could live on social media, stripped of context, fueling another week of dysfunction around a franchise that already has plenty. We can't. That's the thing, Sanders said. If we want to change the narrative, change the franchise. If we want to help, we got to speak. Those type of things like separate us. That sentence matters. This is a rookie quarterback on a 3-12 team, answering questions after a loss, publicly acknowledging that words, not just plays, shape how a locker room survives losing. He's not pretending the season is going well. He's not dodging accountability for his own mistakes. He's saying that certain questions aren't about football at all. They're about division. Sanders went deeper, explaining that these types of questions don't just affect him. They affect how players view the media as a whole. Once players believe reporters are trying to pit teammates against coaches or players against players, the walls go up. Access dries up. Answers become generic. Trust disappears. A lot of the players get these types of questions, Sanders said, and then we want to be working with you all. We want to be proactive. But when you ask questions, or when questions are asked of us players, where it is you are like pinning stuff against each other, it's like, come on, now. That's not defensiveness, that's strategy. Sanders understands something that takes some quarterbacks years, if they ever learn it at all. Media narratives don't just describe a team, they influence it. They shape fan perception, internal pressure, and ultimately decision-making. And on a franchise like Cleveland, where instability has been the norm for decades, those narratives carry even more weight. This wasn't about protecting Kevin Stefanski personally. It was about protecting the idea that decisions are collective. That failure, when it happens, isn't something to be redistributed through quotes after the fact. Sanders took the hit on the field. He wasn't going to pass it along at the podium. And that's why his teammates almost certainly respected the moment. Losing teams fracture in predictable ways. Players subtly blame coaches. Coaches subtly question execution. Quotes get aggregated. Headlines get written. Soon enough, nobody's speaking the same language anymore. Sanders explicitly rejected that cycle. He even acknowledged the tension directly, that when these questions keep coming, players eventually stop talking altogether. It's like a thing in the locker room, he said, where it is like we are not going to be able to talk to them. We are not going to be able to give them what they need because that separates a team. That's a warning, not a complaint. And it's especially striking coming from a player who has been labeled since before the draft as someone who might be too vocal, too visible, or too difficult to manage. Sanders slid to the 5th round in part because teams worried he wouldn't stay on message, that he'd say too much, that he'd become a distraction. What he showed here was the opposite. This was message discipline at a high level. Sanders talked, he explained, he articulated boundaries, and then he refused to answer the question itself. Not out of petulance, but out of principle. And so, as the moment ended, Sanders did not answer it. That silence mattered more than any quote he could have given. Of course, none of this changes the reality on the field. Cleveland is 3-12. Sanders took costly sacks late against Buffalo. He threw interceptions earlier in the game. The Browns had opportunities and didn't convert. Fans are frustrated. Media scrutiny is warranted. Nobody is pretending otherwise. But leadership isn't measured when things are easy. It shows up when losing tempts people to start protecting themselves individually. Sanders didn't do that. He didn't say the play call was wrong. He didn't say it was right. He didn't say he wished they'd punted. He didn't say Stefanski put him in a bad position. He recognized that answering any of those ways would give oxygen to a storyline that helps no one inside that building. That's maturity. It's also self-awareness. Sanders knows he's being evaluated on more than throws right now. Cleveland is deciding what kind of quarterback he can become, not just athletically, but culturally. Can he handle losing? Can he command a room? Can he represent the organization without creating more noise? In that moment, he did. The irony is that this exchange will still become a story, just not the one the question was trying to create. Instead of Sanders questions Stefanski's call, the takeaway became Sanders refuses to fracture team unity. That's a very different headline, and it's one Sanders clearly understood in real time. This wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't combative, it was controlled. On a team with little to celebrate this season, it was a small but meaningful signal. Sanders isn't running from accountability. He's choosing where it belongs, inside the building, not at a microphone designed to extract blame. For a rookie quarterback in Cleveland, that might be the most important trait of all.